All right. We're back. It's COMP1073. That's client-side scripting. And we're week 3, lesson 3, part 2 of our winter 2016 semester. We just got off doing a couple things. We had this little example file we're using just to learn a little bit about JavaScript with arrays. And I'm going to continue this example. But before we do that, what I'd like to do is set up a Git repository with you, because most of us have problems setting up a repository and all that stuff. So we'll do that now, right? So the first thing to do is we have to go to GitHub to set this repository up. And I'm going to use the same, I'm going to put the same files that I'm using right now on the repo, right? So repo, again, is short name for repository. Okay. And so we're going to do the repository. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to auto deploy to Azure, right? So I want you to practice that today too. All right, so let's try this out. So, so the first thing is we need to create a repository online. So let's do this. So first step, GitHub. I'm going to go to GitHub, and last night, like I said, it was down. We had the unicorn, but now it's back up, right? So we're going to go to Georgian College. This is where I store my stuff. You would obviously go to your GitHub, right? And I'm going to click this new repository here, or you might find if you don't find a link that's in here, like I do, because I'm using an organization, you can certainly create a new repository up here, right? Either way, it'll take you to this page, right? Where you have whoever the owner is of the repository and the repository name. So let's do that. So my repository name is going to be COMP1073, right? And it'll be lesson 3, which is the name of the repository. The name of my file, my project is called lesson 3. I might as well use the same name for my repository in this particular case. All right, so that's the first piece. Notice that there's other options, and I'm going to leave all of these other options as is. So I'm not changing anything. It's just default, right? I could initialize it with a README and all this other stuff. I'm not going to. I'm just going to click Create Repository to create it. So what have I done that? What have I done here? I've actually created a space, a container for my files up online, but it's empty, right? Now there's some instructions here on GitHub to connect you, like we talked about before in other videos and another, last couple weeks, right? I have my Visual Studio Code here, and I'm going to use the command line today, right? To really push you guys to use command line, right? What's the easy way to get to my command line for my project using Visual Studio Code? Anyone remember how to do that? I know, Ari, you know how to do it, but I'm sorry for going so slow today. Please forgive me. I know that you know this stuff already, but I'm trying to fill in the gaps for people who don't know, right? So I gotta, your name is again, sir? No. Yeah. Rian. Tell me how do I get to my terminal or my command prompt from Visual Studio Code?
Right click and open command prompt.
Right click over here?
No.
Over here?
Yeah.
No, here? Oh, here. Okay. Okay, so I'm right click here and go to open in terminal or command prompt, right? So I'm going to open that up. What the good news about this one is it takes you right in there, so you don't have to swim around to get there. Now, if you're not using Visual Studio Code, right, what's the other way to do it? You can always go like I did before, but I'll show you. I'm going to kind of minimize these things. Let's say you have another command prompt window. I'm going to minimize all this stuff, right? Here's my other command prompt window just sitting up here, right, or terminal. And I know where my project files are, right? So here's my project right over here, and I want to get to it, right? Well, if I have my project on my desktop, it's easy. I just have to do this CD space and then drag my folder onto my command prompt or terminal. When I do that, it gives me the path to where my project is, and I press enter, and that'll give me the exact same space. So either way is good, whether you're using Visual Studio Code or not, right? So whatever way you want to get there, you decide, all right? Okay, cool. So I'm in there, and I've got my terminal window or command prompt on Windows PCs. I'm here, right, in my command prompt. Okay, cool. What's the command for me to initialize a repository that's local on my computer, right? It's not connected to the cloud or anything like that. It's just local on my computer. What's the command, the first command? Git init. Everyone should know that one. If you don't know git init by now because you did it on the test, something's wrong. So git init, right? That's the first one. Okay, cool. You might see a different message than me because you're using a Windows PC, or you may not see a message at all, right? It's okay, right? If you don't see anything, it usually works. If you get some other error, like git is an unrecognized command, right? Something's not right with your Windows PC. You haven't set it up properly. We have to go through that old rigmarole. Watch the videos for the last 2 weeks to set yourself up, okay? Part 2, I want to stage all my files, right? And the reason I'm saying staging is because they're not quite added until we do a commit. So before we do a commit, we got to stage all the files that I want to track. I want to kind of put them in limbo, if you will. I'm going to say, here's the files that I want to track, right? So how do I do that? I want to stage all my files.
I have a question.
Yes?
When you say git init, it creates a folder where on the location?
It's actually inside my project. It's a hidden folder called .git, right? Inside the folder of my project, inside this COMP1073 lesson 3, there's a hidden folder called .git that it creates. All right, you can't see it. Now, if I was to actually see this folder, if I do it on the Mac or Linux machine, if I do ls-al, you can see I can see all the hidden folders, and one of them is this .git folder, right? On Windows PCs, you have to turn on the visibility of hidden folders for you to see that. We've talked about this before, and you can actually look at that folder as well. All right, let's clear this up for a second. All right, so I've got this thing. So what's that command? What's the command? I want to add everything that I have, all my files that we've worked on. I want to add it to the staging area before I commit, because there's that middle step, right? Anyone remember that is? Sorry?
Git add.
Git add dot. Now, git add is the command. Dot means everything, but you can also specify a file, one file. Like I want to add one file to my staging area. I can specify the file name by file name, right? But for ease of use, we'll just say git add dot. Before I press enter, I want to point it out that online there's a git init, and we add a README file. Notice that it's a specific file instead of git add dot, right? This is also legal, right? We're just using git add dot to add everything, not just a README in this particular case. Okay, so let's go back. Git add dot. Okay, press enter. Now it may or may not give you feedback. On the Mac, it gives me no feedback. On a PC, it may give you a list of feedback with some warnings. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. Right? If it gives you warnings, let it go. As long as it doesn't error out, you're good to go. All right. Next step. I want to make my first commit. So I've got them, right? Just before I send them into or to be tracked inside my invisible Git folder, right? Before I get there, I have to kind of create a name for all these files. This snapshot. I have a snapshot. Right, all these files that I just added represent the snapshot that I'm going to name, and my snapshot, this commit, that's what the Git word for the snapshot is, commit. I need to name it. So what is the command that I need to use to name it? Yes.
Git -m initial commit.
There's two conventions, or there's two different ones. You can use initial commit, I can type, or first commit. Those are the two conventions that we see out there. What does the -m stand for? And I want to hear from somebody else. So what does the Margot, what's -m stand for? No idea. Okay, yes. Message, right? -m is message. It means, hey, this is the message that I need to add to my commit. I can't commit without a message. And the -m signifies what the message, this says anything after the -m in quotations is the message text, okay? So press enter. It might give you some feedback like this or other feedback on a PC, right? And it'll tell you which files, if any, are added. Notice how it says, I have 63 insertions and 3 files that are changed, right? 63 insertions means that I've actually added text to my files. That's all it is. I only have 3 files I'm tracking, okay? Why am I only tracking 3 files? Hold on a second. You might say, you're tracking more than that, Tom, right? Because if I go back to my folder structure, I've got my content folder, and I've got my scripts folder, and I've got these 3 files. Well, Git doesn't track folders, right? What Git does is it uses folders as containers, right? So if I have a folder that's empty, it won't track that. It'll track the file, and it'll track its path. And that's what it's tracking. So I'm only actually adding in 3 files. This file, index.html, which is on the root. This file, which is app.js, which is inside of our scripts folder. And this file, app.css, which, by the way, right now is empty, and is added into the content section. All right, so those 3 files. So on my terminal, those are the 3 files I'm going to see inserted in terminal, and you might see something similar as an example on command prompt. Okay, cool. I want to now push. I want to create. First of all, I want to take these files and put them on the remote. Can I do a push right now? No. Why? Well, no, they're all staged. They're all staged and committed. right? But they're committed locally, and the snapshot is actually physically stored inside the hidden Git folder. It's there, but I can't push everything remotely, and there's a reason, right? So yes, what's the reason? How do I connect to GitHub? I need to connect to my remote. How do I do that? Let's ask someone else. What's the command? You know the command? I never really talk about the command. You know why? You don't have to worry about it. Go into GitHub, right? Copy paste, right? That's how. I mean, if you really want to know, you can memorize the command. It's git remote add, right? And there's a series of stuff. What's origin, right? Origin is what I'm naming my local repository, right? And then you don't have to name it origin, right? We normally call it origin, but you can call it whatever you want, right? Origin is actually a best practice. We're using origin, and then the link, right, to the Git repository, which is right here. So git remote add origin, which is the local. We're naming the local, and then the remote. Yes?
Would I have an issue if it's my terminal, I typed in git commit or something, nothing came up? Did it already be initialized or no? I tried to commit and initial
Okay. Hold on a second. We'll be back there in a second. So let's do this command while you're getting help. Git remote add origin, right? I'm going to take this little line here from the Git repository, and I'm going to pop it in right underneath after I've done my initial commit, right? I'm going to pop it right in here, paste it. You can also type it, right? Notice how it's just right there. You can type it in. So I'm saying git, the git command, remote. I'm specifying, I'm adding a remote add, origin, which is my local repository, and then the link to my remote. Okay, that's what this is, this next piece, right? And I press enter. When I do that, I've created a connection. Have I pushed my repository at this point? Now that I've made a remote connection, have I pushed it yet? No, there's another step. I need to actually tell it to push. So, but once I've done this remote, do I have to do it again? Do I ever have to add in the remote repository again? No, it's only done once. Once you've done it once, this is part of initialization. The things you never have to do again are git init. You never have to initialize the repository again. You shouldn't have to. Let's put it that way, right? Unless you destroy your hidden .git file for something, or .git folder, right? But typically, you never do that again, and you never add a remote again. Yeah.
And if I replace my folder with my files on my computer, what will happen?
Well, what do you mean? You mean just wipe out your folder and put some new files in there, or just remove your folder? Oh, you delete your folder and put it somewhere else. Well, you wouldn't have a local repository anymore, right? Your local repository, your
I will have local repository, yeah, with each file, but I will replace just folder with my file, content, script,
right.
CSS files.
But where is it going? Are you moving this? Are you moving this folder the way it is? Are you copying this folder somewhere else?
Yeah.
If you copy this folder, you also copy the hidden .git folder.
Yes.
It'll copy over, so you're fine, right? You can still do the connection and everything else is normal.
I have this.
Still, you have all that. As long as you have that hidden Git folder, it holds all the information to connect to your remote, and it holds the information that of all your commits. All that stuff is stored, right? As long as you copy the folder. If you delete the folder, right, then that hidden Git folder is deleted too, so then you've lost the connection, and you have to redo that connection. Okay, so let's see. So we made a connection. We have to, I want to push, and I'm going to follow the next line, which is git push. And what does the -u stand for? I've talked about this before. What does the -u stand for? How about Brittany in the back, just because I'm learning your name now, right? What's the -u stand for with the git? I'm going to do this git push -u origin master. What's -u stand for? What? Okay, it stands for unconditional, right? Which means push everything and force it to be pushed. Basically, force everything that I've got here, unconditional push. Don't worry about any kind of errors. Let's push it up there. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say git push -u for unconditional from the origin, which is my local repository, to the master branch. And the master branch, by the way, is the default branch or container that exists on GitHub. That's what it means. Okay, don't worry about it. If you just did it like this, you'll be fine. Press enter. Now, if you haven't fixed it yet, it's going to ask you for your username and password. So it might ask you, hey, can you put my username in for GitHub, right? And you have to type it in. And then your password for GitHub. And a lot of times it won't show your password. Like it'll actually show blanks, right? But you can certainly fix this by saying, I want to set up or configure terminal for Git, so I don't have to put in my password anymore. If you actually look it up on GitHub, on Google, it'll tell you how to do that. There's a series of commands, right, to do. But otherwise, if you're comfortable with it, just log in, use your username and password every time you do a push, and you're good. It's actually good practice and good security anyway. All right, so I've pushed out to GitHub, and now I want to check to see what I've got on my remote, and I'm going to go to my GitHub online and refresh. Yay, I've got my content, my scripts, and my index.html. You should have it now too. If you actually go to my GitHub, so if you go to Georgian College, so github.com/Georgian College/COMP1073-lesson3, you'll see all my files, right? So if I actually click into scripts and I go into app.js, you'll see all my files, including all the comments, all the other stuff that we did last time, all the script. And we're going to be using this methodology, like I said, over and over again. Now you're smiling. Does that mean that I've lost you again?
No.
All right. Not this time? Yes.
Is index supposed to be in content?
Index is not supposed to be in content. Index should be inside of, it should be on the root, like this, right?
Yeah, because my content,
So it should be like this, Margot. This is the folder structure.
but the content didn't come through on the scripts and index.
Well, that means that there could be nothing in your content. Do you have an app.css in your content? All right, so that usually should come through if there's something if it's being tracked. All right, so we've got our first commit or initial commit, and notice that there's a bunch of buttons here. One of them is, or a bunch of links. One of them is commits. Notice that there's one commit. If I click onto it, it gives me a list of commits. Now, right now, I only have one, my initial commit, and it has a number next to it. This number is a special number that indicates it's unique for each commit, by the way. It indicates that this initial commit has this number, all right? That's all it is. I can actually look inside this commit. If I click on the commit itself, I can see all the stuff that's been added in this commit, right? These are the things that have been snapshotted, if you will. Like, basically, we've created a snapshot for each of these items, and we've included these items inside of our commit, these 3 changed files, right? Okay, let's go back to my repository here. All right, remember what I told you about before. If I want to add a README file, I can add it here online. Remember, we can also pull, right, from GitHub. Let's do the pull. And in order for us to do this, I'm going to create a README file online on my GitHub. So I'm going to click add a README. And where it says add a README, I'm going to type in, when it lets me, right, some basic stuff. I'll kind of skip down here. And this is Markdown, right? So let's leave everything as is up here where the pound key is. The pound sign basically indicates an H1 tag. It's like doing HTML, right, without HTML. So up here, it's just marked down for a single pound sign, pound symbol, means H1. That's what it means. So this is like a heading, right? If I want to do an H2, I can do a double pound, right? And that'll be the secondary heading. So this is my secondary heading or secondary thing of importance. And it'll be COMP1073, client-side scripting, if I can spell. Client-side, I can't spell today. Scripting, kind of thing. And it's lesson 1, lesson 3. And it's at Georgian College, right? Now notice I put this double pound here in front, and that means a heading 2. That's what it is. It's equivalent to a heading 2 in HTML, right? Markdown. Okay, cool. On the bottom here, notice that there's a big space for you to enter stuff in, and then on the bottom, you've got this commit new file. You have to add a commit message for this thing you're adding in, this new file you're changing or adding, and it gives you a default message, create readme MD. And if you just want to accept the message and click commit new file, it'll create the new commit and the new file all at once. All right, so let's do that. So what it does now, it adds this readme file. Notice how it's really, really big because this is a heading 2 equivalent, right? Okay, cool. So I've got this file. And so now we have 2 commits up online. Look, I've got on here, if I click on the commits, I've got 2 commits. I've got my initial commit, plus I created my readme file. There's 2 commits now. But in my local machine, I only have 1 commit. So I'm 1 commit behind. That's what it means. Locally, I'm 1 commit behind. On the remote, I'm 1 commit ahead. Think of it that way, right? So that's the most recent commit is up online, right? I don't have the most recent files. And if I'm working with a partner, let's say Andrew's my partner, she added the remote as an example, and I need to get that. I need to get that that README file from online. I'm going to pull it in now. So I'm going to go back to my command prompt or a terminal. Let me just clear it. On Windows, the command for clearing your console is CLS. On Mac computers or on Linux machines, it's clear, right? Okay, cool. And I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to say git in the same git folder, right? Git pull. Git pull. I'm not even telling you where I'm pulling. I'm pulling from my remote, my default remote. If I press enter here, it's going to go to the remote, check to see what changes I've made, and it's going to pull down one file that's changed, which is my README file, down into my local repository. All right, so now, right, when I do that, if I check my Visual Studio code, it should also show a README file right here. There's my README file, right? So this is the one that created online that I pulled with my git pull command. So again, I can do a series of pushes every time I do a commit, right? Every time I do a commit. In order for me to do that, I have to stage my files first, so git add dot, right? I have to, every time, this is the regular thing. Now that I've created my repository online, the process here on in is git add dot, git commit -m, and the name of my commit. That's the process. And when I push that up to, then I push git push origin master. That's the third line. Okay, so let's try this out. Let's do this, a little change. So I don't want to make this my README file. I don't want to make this a heading 2. I want to take this away. So I'm making a small change to my README file. Notice that I have this symbol here in Visual Studio Code. Tells me I have an unsaved file, and it even says it up here, unsaved file, save, right? I'm going to click here this time in Visual Studio Code to see that there's one file that is changed. I could change it here, but I'm going to do everything today with Terminal, all right, without Visual Studio Code. So let's go back to Terminal. I know I've changed the file, right? And I'm going to go like this. I'm going to say git add dot, right? Git commit -m for message, and I'll say updated readme.md, right? That's what I've done, right? I press enter. So now it's staged, and locally it's added a new snapshot of my entire repository, right? Locally into my hidden.git folder, but it's not connected yet online. In order for me to update online, I got to do the third command, which is git push origin master, which is going to take my local files the way they are, push them back up online, another push. Every time I push, I update my commits. I take my local commit and I transfer it online. I actually copy it online, right? So if I look now online, here's my GitHub repository online. If I refresh, notice that I have another commit. I have 3 commits now, and I've updated my readme.md. So I did git add dot, I did git commit -m, updated readme file, and then the next line I did git push origin master. Those are the 3 steps going forward that you need every single time you do a new push. Yes? It's unconditional. It's only for the first time you push through the repository. You don't need to do it again. Okay? It's only the first time.
How do we get it to not ask for our credentials?
That's a good question. So, so I want to, if you Google this, if I say, you know, configure command prompt, it, right? So it doesn't ask, put it in there, it doesn't ask for username. If I put that in there like that, it says, how do I ensure Git doesn't work? It doesn't ask me for a GitHub username, right? I'm just choosing one, right? There's an answer here. You need to set up an SSH agent against which you only need to authenticate once. See this answer right here. In fact, she's another answer. And it says, that's cool. Try SSH add, and you need SSH agent to be running and holding your private key. This is only good for OS X, like Mac machines or Linux. It doesn't really work for Windows the same way. So let's go back and then Windows, on Windows, right? And now it surely will give me the same one, but that's not the one. Git push requires username, password, Stack Overflow. How do I get rid of this? Is back into, and by the way, there's credential storage here. I'm going to go back into there in a second. But git push, and if I go down here, if you look at some of these things, it says git remote, set URL, origin, da 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 da. That's the repo. But that doesn't really tell me anything. I need to add my username and password. So how do I do that? So I'm going to go back down to here. Let's keep looking. Here's one, credential storage. And then if you notice, what I want to do here is I want to do one of these, git config -- global. And then I set up a credentials helper cache, right? And then in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to store my credentials, which is a file that I'm going to create, right? And inside this file, right, I'm going to create this file, which is my username and password. And under the hood, what are you doing? And so and tells you, follow these instructions, it tells you what to do. Here's your username. So I'm making a file. Here's my file itself. And in my file, I'm specifying my username and password for this particular, for GitHub. All right, that's what I'm really doing here. Now, this is a long, drawn-out way. There's actually a real shorter way to do it. You just have to find it up online that it tells you. And, because people are asking, how do I fix that? I'm going to come up with a fix for next week. Let's come up with a little script you put in. Yeah, and then you just put it in and you fix it. Because it'll be different for every machine. Like for Windows machines, it'll be one way. And for Mac machines, it'll be something else. All right? So just to let you know. That's why I haven't come up with a fix yet, because there's 2 different ways to do things. And some people don't really care to do that. They want to keep the security, so I kind of leave it as is, right? But if you're always doing pushes to Git, it's a pain in the ass to always put in your username and password. Okay, so we've pushed it to Git, and now I want it to auto-deploy to Azure, all right? So remember how we do the Azure piece, right?
No, it's like a cloud. It's just like a cloud. Azure.
Cloud?
Just explain about the Georgia College in the right-hand corner was Azure.
Well, how do we get to Azure? So it's portal.azure.com, right? That's how I get to Azure. So please follow me here. Let's do it together. Again, I'm asking this one more time. Does anyone not have access to Azure? Because then you won't be able to do what I'm doing here, right? You have to log in with your Microsoft account, right? Here's my Microsoft account. And it's going to take you to log in. So I'm going to put my login credentials, right? It might ask me. It might ask me for for other credentials, but in this case, it knows my machine, so I'm good. I have some repositories from last week. One of them is this COMP1073 lesson 2, right? That's still running. We're going to kill that later on. And some other ones here that I've got going on. Let's add in another one, right? So how do I add another repository? How do I add another website, if you will, to Azure? Remind me here. We did this last week one time, right? So. Huh? I don't know if you have new somewhere on yours. Does yours look different than mine? All right. So over here you have new, right? You have this, right? I just hide it like this. See this? Whoop. Oh. Right? So I don't show those. I know what they are. So plus is what you want, right? You want to click the plus for new. And now it's going to ask you what type of new thing do you want? Do you want a new compute container? Do you want a web and mobile container, a data storage container, blah, 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 all these things? Click the web and mobile one, right? And you're going to go to web app. Okay, cool. And under web app, you're going to need to come up with a unique name across the world for AzureWebsites.net. All right? It has to be unique completely.
Yeah.
That's a problem. That means you're logged in with the wrong credentials. You're logged in with Georgian as opposed to Outlook or your Hotmail. All right?
That's how it logs me in.
So then you have to go through what? You have to go to incognito mode, right? Like I taught you before, right? Otherwise, it'll cache your Georgian account because you probably logged in there to get your mail, right? That's why I'm doing this again. Because you're gonna be tripped up when you do this next time, right? I know Andrew's shaking her head. She's like, no, I can't do it. Right? Can you do it too? All right. So notice how it's taking me to my default directory. So the smart thing to do that I always like to tell people to do anyway is open up an incognito window, right? So a new incognito window that doesn't cache who you are, and go to portal.azure.com, and then put in your username and password. So your email, which is my email, is here. Notice it doesn't remember me, and my password. Now it's going to redirect me to the type of Microsoft account. That's all it's doing. So I have to wait a second and then put in my password, and it's going to ask me for my authentication, my authenticator app, because I have two-step authentication for unknown devices. And because I'm using incognito mode, it doesn't recognize this device because it's not tracking, right? So I need to use my authenticator app, which I have on my phone here, which I recommend for you guys if you want to keep good security for your Outlook accounts, or even other accounts too. and kind of put it in. I put in a number that it gives me. There we go. And press submit. Notice I'm not going to click this I sign in frequently on this device. Don't ask me again because it won't matter with incognito mode. Click submit. Now I'm in, right? And I'm in incognito mode. I'm working from some other device, just like I normally would, right? The biggest problem is when you log in, you've already logged in into your Georgian account, it sees you as an Outlook user that's already signed in. And it tries to use that Outlook account, because Georgian also uses Outlook, right? For its email, yeah? So it uses that as your login credentials for Azure, and it doesn't recognize you. You have to log in with the Microsoft account that you signed up for Azure. Otherwise, it won't work, okay? So that's why I'm using incognito mode. So when I hover over my name, I'm not going to see my Georgian account name. I'm going to see my Hotmail account, which is my last name at hotmail.com, by the way, for people who want to email to me directly outside of Georgian, right? All right, so you can use other accounts as well. Gmail is fine too. I'm just saying this is how you would do it. You check your username. If your username says Tom at georgiancollege.ca or something, or my.georgian.ca or something like that, something's not right. It shouldn't say that up here. It should say your Hotmail account or your Outlook right out here.
Mine says the Outlook account,
Yeah, that's something's wrong there. So I'm going to get Rich, if you can help Margot out for a sec. Okay, so let's try this out. So I'm going to go into my plus again, like I showed you, and I'm going to create a new container. I'm going to go to web and mobile. I'm going to click on web app, right? And in here, I'm going to create a unique name for my app service, right, that I'm creating, a new website name. It's got to be unique across the world, all right? I'm going to use COMP1073, all in lowercase, right? COMP1073, and it's going to be dash lesson 3. Now, if you used it, I can't use it, right? And I'm going to show you that. So someone else, can you someone else use this one? Steal this name from me, all right? So come up there and make COMP1073 lesson 3, dash lesson 3. And I'll show you and create the actual location. And I'll try and do it. Huh? L3. No, I want you to use mine. COMP1073 lesson 3. You did it? Okay, and I'll wait till it creates it. Yeah, create it. Go ahead.
why does our subscription say DreamSpark?
DreamSpark is the free subscription that Microsoft gives you. Mine's pay as you go because I have other features I like to use with mine. Okay. Because one thing you can't get with DreamSpark for students is you can't get a SQL Server, and sometimes I want to run SQL Server, right? Okay, cool. So you've created it. Now I want to use it. I want to use. Is it done?
It's saying define web app expert.
Okay, so it's still going. So it's probably reserved the name. So if I go lesson 3, right? It says it's good, but if I try and deploy it yet, did you put it just like this? Oh, that's different.
Oh, so it's case sensitive.
It is. I'm going to create it too as lesson 3. Let's see what happens, right? So here's I'm deploying and submitting my deployment as well. If everything goes well, my deployment should finish, and our names are very similar. So you might get Andrew instead of me if you put a capital L, right? Just saying, right? Oh, hey, here's something cool. My deployment actually failed, probably because it found yours first, right? So let's try this again. So my deployment failed.
It's deployed now.
Now let's try it again. Let's try that again. So I'm going to go mobile and web, right? Web app. I'm going to go into my app service name, right? So we're going to call this thing, again, COMP1073 lesson 3, and press create. Let's try this out. Create. I know, right? Because like even if lowercase or uppercase doesn't matter, right?
It's not sensitive.
So let's call this lesson 3 demo, right? Because that's new. Now it'll work because I need to make it unique across the world. If Angie already has it, I can't do it. If you have it, I can't do it. It's got to be unique. And click create. Okay. If no one else has that one, it'll go up online and create a new container for my web apps. Everything for this little website I'm making. When I create my container, remember, it is empty up online, right? There's nothing up there. It'll create an empty space for my files. And now what I want to do, the second step after I've done this deployment, is I want to do an auto deployment from GitHub straight into Azure, right? Who remembers what to do? So I'm going to give you a little lab in a second to do this thing, right?
Continuous deployment.
So you go down to publishing, right? Here's publishing. and notice how there's continuous deployment down here, right? Click on continuous deployment, and I want you to go from configure required settings. You're going to click GitHub, and then after GitHub, it's going to ask you, hey, it's going to ask you to authorize for the first time. I've already authorized myself. And now, because I have more than one organization, it's going to ask me which organization you want. I want to use this one. I'm going to leave it as is. But it's going to ask me for the project, which is really important. I'm going to click on my project, and it'll kind of take you a lot of times to the latest project. Sometimes it won't. Like, for example, if my organization is wrong. Like, my organization is Georgian College. It's the one we've been working on, right? Now I'm going to click on project. Notice that the latest project is this COMP1073 lesson 3. I want to click on that one. And I want to leave the master branch as the default branch and press OK. When I've done that, it goes onto GitHub. It takes GitHub and it fires it into my auto deployment. Yeah.
Did you have students sign in with their student emails or with their Microsoft?
Microsoft. To make it easier, right? That's how it should be.
I had to create.
Right, a new Microsoft account. That's what you have to do. Is everyone else in there? Only Margot? Anyone else?
I reset up, that's all right.
You have to re-sign up again?
Yeah, reset up.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Why does it take
Like,
Huh?
Why does it take it just takes what's Microsoft?
Outlook or Hotmail. Yeah, because that's your way you do it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I've got my deployment, and I want to check it. I want to check my deployment. If I click this link here, right, and I press Control on Windows and click the link, or Command on Mac and click the link, I get a new tab in Chrome, and then I can see Welcome to Lesson 3. That's what you should see. And if I go into Inspect, I should see all the stuff that we've been doing, which is all this stuff, right? And don't worry about the last server responded with a 404 because I don't have a favicon. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. So if you actually go there, go to COMP1073 Lesson 3 Demo Azure Websites.net, right? That's what you'll see. Have you all done that?
It's taking 4 minutes every time we click. There we go. Again. Redo. You had to sign in. You had to sign in. Credit card.
No, you shouldn't have to do that, man. If that means you're that's now what they're asking for, a new sign up? That's new. That's a new thing. I never had to do that before.
I re-signed up and I still.
You just put your credit card in there? Yeah? I've never had to do that. Right, so. Yeah, and then?
And then you get the frequent bypass. But you bypass the whole credit. That's what we need to do. The number of people having the same issue.
All right.
Because yeah, it's my second account. It's still same thing.
Shouldn't do
Yeah,
that.
you don't want the free trial. The free trial is 30 days, and then they want you to pay.
That's what they just did to me. But I already went through this. I was on the phone with Microsoft, and he's actually
As Georgian students, if we go through DreamSpark, you'll have not a free trial. It'll actually say DreamSpark as your subscription.
Here.
And it's not 30 days.
So it is, you're talking about, if you go to e5onthehub.com.
You can just go to dreamspark.com.
Yeah, if you go down to, you're talking about the DreamSpark code to get Microsoft Azure more at no cost, this one. If you click this, it gives you the DreamSpark code right here. So this is the DreamSpark code to get Microsoft Azure and more at no cost, right? That's on E5 on the hub, right? So Georgian College Computer DreamSpark.
If you do a product search on Azure on E5, there were so many files. And
Yeah, that's the problem. If I go Azure like this, if I go product search Azure and I press enter, then what ends up happening is I get this, but there's other ones too, and you need this one. You need this verification code.
You can also go to dreamspark.com, and there's a thing for students,
Yeah.
students to sign up there. So you don't want the free trial. You want the DreamSpark subscription.
So I just went through there. We're he knows all about it. We just keep kicking in free trial, even though I have all the stuff from Microsoft.
Go to a new Incognito tab.
Yeah. Tried that, and it still did it.
That's weird.
oh, I did that with you. And it just got back as well. No, es que está unplugged out of it.
Wow, that's weird. Okay, I'm gonna pause. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to help Rich here because without this, we can't do our lab, right? So let's pause the video. I'm gonna go around and help people fix people up, and then we'll come back.